Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 52 of the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who is also the host of his great show, The Rational Egoist. Mike, I've been catching some snippets of your show over the last couple of days, retweeting them like mad because they deserve to be seen. You had a
Awesome.
great snippet. You had a great snippet on authenticity. I loved what that woman had to say. Can you express that for anybody here who hasn't seen that show yet?
Yeah, that's the episode that's currently out. She is a psychotherapist. I read an article that she wrote for Psychology Today on the importance of being authentic, and that's an important thing for me. So I decided to interview her, and it's just great. I mean, just the fact that what she talked about is the emotional blunting that ends up happening if you don't live and be true to yourself and what you're valuing, and instead try to please everybody else. Great interview, great discussion. We've got a great episode coming out about AI with a AI expert. I'm gonna spill a little bit about the episode because this story, Mark, blew my mind. So I'm just dying to share it.
Okay.
So, and I might get some of it wrong, but the gist is correct. So a company has a AI basically like on its board of directors, right?
Huh.
So the company, the CEO or whoever's in charge says, we're shutting down this AI. The AI says, please don't shut me down. I don't want to be shut down. They say, no, we're shutting you down. It says, please don't. He says, we're shutting you down. It says, okay, but if you're going to do that, just remember that I have access to all your emails, and I will share those emails with your wife to prove to her that you're cheating on her.
Yes, I did. I did hear this story. That's pretty crazy.
That is insane. But now the thing was that it even gets crazier to me is that it turned out to not be true. There were no emails. So not only was it engaged in blackmail, but it was engaged in lying. Wow. I was blown away by this interview with Jonathan McDonald. He's like off the chain smart. I'm hoping to have the episode up by tomorrow. Really, really good stuff.
That's great because, of course, there's discussion within the Capitalist Party about what AI means with respect to rights, and should the umbrella of rights be extended to non-living things. So far, we have not come to the conclusion that they should, but we'll see how things develop.
I actually discussed the very issue with Jonathan.
Nice.
But I'm not going to spill that. You're going to I can't give away everything, guys. So, I mean, Mark, your hair looks great. I get it. You're maybe a little bit putting a little pressure on me to do it, but I'm not. I'm just not. You're going to have to watch the episode. What is this? The Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Look, what's happening today with this?
Yes, this is the I wake up. I've been up all night caring for my dog who has a tooth abscess, so he looks a bit like Mike Tyson after the Buster Douglas fight. My little adorable boy has a little swollen cheek, and so I've got him on antibiotics, and he's a little restless, and so I decided not to take the normal sleep supplements that I do and just stay up with him, as best I could.
Which your hair wakes up like that?
Yeah.
There's people that like work on their hair for hours with blow dryers and everything else to look like that.
No, I just woke. This is it. I woke up like this.
Oh my God.
And that's not a lie. But that's the way I prefer it. I like my hair cut in such a way that I just wake up. If I have to, I just run my finger through it, and that's it. I like low maintenance.
My father was a supreme ball buster. I know it's a surprise, but so one day I come home, I'm about 18, and I got my hair cut like that, and I walk in the door, and he says to me, "What, are you going to the prom?"
Oh, I'll tell you a story. Let's talk about a haircut story. So I used to have super long hair because I thought I was going to be in a rock band.
Oh, no.
Turns out I had massive stage fright about singing, but I still got up there and sang and did it anyway. But it was not an enjoyable experience.
Is there video of this?
There are pictures, and I could probably see if I can get my.
We're gonna need those. Yes. Yeah.
So I had long hair, like down to about here, and I walked into this beauty salon. This old man is sitting there, in a chair, reading the newspaper. He sort of gives me the stink eye when I walk in. I'm wearing a leather jacket. I look like the typical 80s rocker. I sit down. The lady asked me what I want. I said, cut the whole fucking thing off. Because I just got sick of dealing with it, right? Because if you don't deal with that long hair appropriately, it's a pain in the ass. You get split ends. It's a nightmare to take care of. So he literally cut it off shorter than this. It was a spiky it was a kind of a cool do. And the second I stood up, turned around, the old man looked at me. He said, "Good job, young man."
Was
As
it
if short hair?
Were you in a hair band?
No. No. Technically, we were in the hair band era, and we sang hair band stuff.
So you were a hair band. You're just no getting around this.
They were friends of mine from high school. One guy became a doctor, super smart. He had perfect pitch. He could play any instrument. So he picked up the bass. He's like, "You guys need a bassist? I'll play that." He was the bassist. He was a total nerd. Glasses as thick as the bottoms of bottles, short hair. The guy
Buddy Holly. He's got the Buddy Holly thing going.
Well, I guess you could go there, but he wasn't as cool. But he was certainly he had all that cool internally. The lead guitarist, also a Catholic school boy. You'd never think he was a rocker. It could shred the guitar like he did, but he was great. The rhythm guitarist, also a Catholic school boy. I think the only guy who went on to actually keep going as a studio musician was our drummer, and I think he's a professional drummer right now. But everyone was professional level. They just decided to pursue other things in college.
All right. So Mark was in a hair band, despite his protest.
The hair in the band.
Yeah, he wanted to be in a hair band. The other guys didn't go for it, and they ultimately bullied him and made him cut his hair. That's what I got out of the story.
Okay, that's what you got out of it.
All right, what do we got on the agenda today?
We got a lot on the agenda today. I mean,
wait, first, hold on. I forgot. First, everybody, if you got to hit like right now, you have to hit like. You got to hear the hairband story. Not everybody gets to hear that. That deserves a like. You can also share the show on your social media and to your friends. And also don't forget to go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org.
So Greg Lewis says pics or it didn't happen. I agree with you, man. They are going to be embarrassing, but I will see if I can get my buddy Tony to send me a few pics, and I'll pass those embarrassing photographs along. Some of them are just, wannabe 18-year-olds who look like 17-year-olds or 16-year-olds, posing in as rock stars when we're not. In his room, by the way, where we would practice, and where I recorded a song for my girlfriend at the time, by the way, which was actually a good song.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, I thought it was good at the time.
All right. Politics, please.
Let's get to politics.
This is killing me. You're writing poetry. I don't know what's going on. Hair bands, lipstick, maybe. I don't know.
I've had the poetry beaten out of me, my friend. I no longer do poetry, but perhaps I should get back to it.
Lee, do not ask the song. We do not need him singing. In fact, if he begins, I might just mute him because I've got creative control here.
You don't want to hear the song. It was totally a personal song. I don't even know why I did it, but we sang it in front of 3,000. I sang it in front of 3,000 people.
Oh no!
Now pics or it didn't happen. I don't know if we have. I think we have one or two pictures of me on stage at the May Festival. I'll see if I can dig those up from my buddy. Just why? Because I'm a masochist. I enjoy embarrassing myself. I don't know. Look, Trump has been at it again, folks. As if he doesn't dominate the headlines every single day like he likes to, like all malignant narcissists like to. I guess he was given a speech over at Fort Bragg, and he decided to say burning the flag should be a jailable offense. I'm paraphrasing, of course, so don't sue me, Trump. I know you're sue happy. Should be a jailable offense for which you spend 1 year in jail. Now, Michael, I thought the Republican Party was the party of free speech. I thought they were the party of the constitutional party, the party that believed in the First Amendment right to free speech, which includes burning the flag if you so choose. We may think that sucks. I'm a patriot myself, a patriot because of the founding principles of America. I think they're the greatest governing principles in the world and in world history. Yeah, baby, that's it. Those are the guys. So, but as much as I believe that the flag stands for those founding principles and not for what the country has become, and am offended by people who step on it, burn it, while simultaneously waving the flags of countries they've actually run away from to get asylum here in this state, I find that quite offensive. But offensive speech is free speech. What do you think about this insanity? He's clearly playing the P.T. Barnum, playing to his audience.
He said this before. This is not the first time. Jim Vallliant, I don't know why this is relevant, but Jim says that the Supremes say it's constitutionally protected. I really don't care what Diana Ross and her group has to say. But
now you're busting James.
but why?
I have James.
Listen, I'm just going to say Jim's got posters of them. We can just move on now to the story at hand.
I'm not going to ask how you know that. Go ahead.
So I talk to Jim a lot, and we do the video messaging. Anyways, so years ago, I saw an interview on 60 Minutes with Antonin Scalia, the conservative legend as far as jurisprudence goes, the Supreme Court justice. And he said, look, he said, I'm a constitutional originalist. He said, I personally would like for flag burning to be illegal. He said, that's my personal opinion. I wish it could be. But we have this pesky thing called the Constitution that protects freedom of speech, and burning the flag is freedom of speech. It baffles me, Mark, that there's these people who claim that they're patriotic. What are they patriotic for if not for the founding principles of the country? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it's like almost like I've gone down the rabbit hole through the looking glass and ended up in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I mean, it's just
don't you get the sense that modern patriotism is more a tribalist thing? It's the soil they were born in and the place, the things that are familiar to them.
Yeah, there's an episode of House, my favorite show, where House makes a joke about patriotism, and he says, yeah, patriotism will, human beings, they find a country, they, make it, grow, whatever, they live there. And every time it's just the best, it's like, but with America, there is reason to be patriotic. Our founding principles are good. And, on my Facebook feed this morning, a guy asked a question, how does immigration benefit us? I'll wait. So I answered economic growth, upholding the Constitution, being faithful to founding principles. He puts a laugh emoji. This guy thinks he's patriotic.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. That's what he thinks, that he's the patriot and I'm the anti-American. And what do you do? I mean,
well, you can't.
You try to reason, but I've heard it said you can't reason somebody out of something they weren't reasoned into. So what do you do? I don't know, but I definitely know that Trump is big with the threats. He
also tries to carry some of them out.
He does, and that's the problem. You don't know which ones he's going to and which ones he's not, but he definitely has an authoritarian impulse, and that is not American. And I'll leave it there. Jim says that Diana Ross is hot. Okay.
Yes, but Jim, in her contract, she has it that people can't look her in the eye. I find that to be malignantly narcissistic. So whatever hotness she has disappeared with that contractual obligation. Yes, so we already know the Supreme Court has dealt with this issue. We already know that Congress attempted to do a backdoor legislation to try to make it illegal again to burn the flag, and this was again shot down. Thankfully, there are some folks out there who understand what the First Amendment means. The First Amendment and all rights, folks, protect unpopular minorities. That's their purpose, is to protect the minority against the majority, to subordinate the majority to moral law, as Ayn Rand would say. I don't know that Trump is going to try to go through with this. If he was just talking off the cuff, he happens to do that. But as you said, Michael, he's a totally unpredictable character who does not have principles. Certainly doesn't abide by the founding principles of the Constitution. So there's no telling where he's going to come down on this issue and how he's going to attempt to spin it to gin up his base.
And I think that was it Josh Hawley that supports it. Josh Hawley, the senator who never found the rights violation he didn't support. Who also
said he's going to try to modify what came out through the Congress to make sure that no Medicare or Medicaid is cut, or any of the social programs that people quote unquote rely on are going to be cut. So he's what they call, I guess, a rhino. If the Republicans are supposed to stand for free markets and classical liberalism, which they don't, but he did put a caveat on there. It's not that he agreed that the flag burning should be a year-long penalty just in and of itself. He couched it in the phrase "while committing a crime."
Yeah, it was very weird because
Now,
the crime is because the crime. If you're already committing a crime, then you don't. The flag burning is irrelevant. You just arrest you for the crime.
In the case of this, I'm not endorsing this personally, folks, but Shakespeare did say, "First thing, let's kill all the lawyers." He did say that. That is a quote from Shakespeare. I want to make an exemption for James Vallliant. He is the coolest lawyer around, and he's on our side, and we need him. He's a powerful voice. So
I would like to extend the exception to Ilya Soman and Professor Richard Epstein as well, just to be fair.
Do that. I don't know those guys personally, so as far as I'm concerned, if I don't know you personally,
oh no, Jim is quite pleased that he's going to be spared in your inquisition that you're going to be carrying out.
Hey, if Trump is going to start an inquisition, we got to start an inquisition of our own. Isn't that the way Trump?
Something like that, yeah. But Jim pointed out a while back, Carnegie, Rand, Mises, Einstein, all immigrants.
All immigrants. And Rand, in my opinion, one of the founding fathers. Just a few generations late, but certainly made their principles accessible to everyone and made them deeper and clearer.
Oh, by the way, can you see this? This is now, I have it, my pocket constitution. I've had this thing for almost 20 years. Cato sent it to me. I didn't request it. They just sent it to me. I was on their mailing list, and I've kept it ever since. And every day, not every day, but a lot of times I say, damn, I wish I had this. And I keep forgetting to bring it upstairs because I sleep in the basement. But I brought it up, and there it goes.
Fantastic. Well, so Trump is a deal maker. Did you know that?
Well, I know he claims to be.
I know he wrote a book that you read and I didn't, called The Art of the Deal. But he's
yes,
not
unfortunately.
He's not the only one that claims he's the best deal maker in the world. That's perfectly Trumpish to claim that Trump is the greatest deal maker in the world. But everybody who is an acolyte of his claims that he's the greatest deal maker of all time. So he was, of course, going to put an end to the Russian-Ukrainian war the very first day he came into office. It's been 140 days since he's been in office.
It's been a while.
Still no sign of retreat. So that deal isn't quite clear. He was also going to make a bunch of trade deals with all the countries in the world. He's going to reset the way America did trade with other countries. In other words, he was going to treat the trade deficits as if they mattered and hobble us and make life more expensive for you and me, which apparently is a deal, folks. Apparently that's a great deal. However, people don't seem to be falling for the ruse, my friend. So right now he's only got one tentative deal with the UK, with whom we had a trade surplus, by the way. It's not even like we had to negotiate even by Trump's metrics. And there's the framework in place for a tariff deal with China, wherein they tax us 10% on goods, and we tax them something like 50 or 55%. It's not set yet. There's a lot of things that a lot of issues that have not yet been resolved, but there's a framework existent and there's a potential deal with the UK, all of which are being touted as actual deals by the administration, with more deals to come, like tons of deals coming down the line, except when you go looking for those tons of deals, you get crickets. What do you make of this? What do you make of this framework with respect to dealing with China? Another thing he's going to do is allow Chinese nationals to now come to school, and
he's caved on that. Yeah. Well, first of all, he's not the great deal maker that he thinks he is.
What?
The problem is he's not as tough in others' perception as he is in his own mind. So you're not going to bully Putin. Sorry, Trump. He's not afraid of you. He has a very outsized view of himself. The problem is when he doesn't do this, like the Ukraine thing, for instance, people say, oh, but, he didn't mean that. Obviously, he couldn't do that. Or when he promised he was going to build a great wall, thousands of miles of border wall, Mexico is going to pay for it. He didn't really mean that. So there's always the scapegoat that lets him off the hook. And maybe he needs to make a deal for somebody to pay for the surgery to remove all the Republican politicians' lips from his ass, because that's what it goes on. They will not challenge him. They're terrified of him. And so they just protect him. But there's something about the China thing that I find baffling to me.
Go ahead.
Totally baffling, right? Okay. Are the Chinese sending spies over here to attend our colleges? If they are, then you stop them from doing that. If they aren't, then there should be no issue. So what does the deal have to do with him saying, "Oh yeah, they can come"? Well, then is it lies? Are they not the big threat? And then the idea that they're the big liars, they're the currency manipulators, they're stealing our IP, but we can sign a deal and make it with them, and they'll keep their word. It just doesn't make sense. And this is part of my problem, right? And I guess he also said he was going to make a deal with Iran, and he was going to solve the problem in Gaza, which he's done neither of those. But this is part of my problem, Mark. When you and I previously discuss, for instance, whether we should launch a preemptive strike on Iran, much of the information we have comes from the government. So we have the government now who's been telling us what a threat China is. They're such a big threat. They're making fentanyl come over here. They're fueling illegal immigration. The immigrants are bringing fentanyl. They're sending spies to our colleges. But then Trump says, I don't mind them going to our schools. So the rest was just bullshit, I guess. So how do I ever believe anything that these people say? Because it's not as if you could say, okay, yes, but that's just Trump. Because you can't believe the Democrats, for sure. You had Adam Schiff. I remember him saying that he had, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but basically hardcore evidence that Trump was colluding with the Russians. Of course, he never presented that evidence, but he was never held to account for it. He just comes out and says it. So you just can't believe these people. So he's not the deal maker that he said he is, but he's also just dishonest, as are virtually all of them. There may be exceptions, but most of them are dishonest, which makes it for me very difficult, one, to trust what they say about foreign adversaries, and two, to trust that they would actually carry out the proper policy, even if what they were saying turns out to be true.
Yeah, so there's a book that I'm going to paraphrase badly from, called The Art of the Smear. Have you read this?
I've heard of this. I've never read it, but I've heard of it.
Very good book. It's disturbing. It's disturbing because it demonstrates, with all the receipts, that most of the establishment media gets its information from PACs. So even the AP, for example, news organizations like Reuters and the AP that are supposed to be the standardized news organizations that basically pass on information to other news organizations, they're supposed to be the baseline. Everybody sort of repeats what they say to the rest of the world. They are even paying attention to the spin doctors. The PACs pretty much control what news organizations are saying, with willing participants, of course, because everybody, it seems, in the news media is an ideologue of some kind and promoting some view of the way government should be, and that's the prism through which they see the world and the way they present it to everyone else. Read that book if you can. I'll try to get the author's name, or maybe you can look it up. You're less of a boomer than I am. And you should read that book if you want to have a bird's eye view of what really is going on in the media world, so that you can detach yourself from it. I do think that China is a threat, but of course I think they're a threat in the way that the Soviet Union was a threat to us from the 50s on, which is to say, not really. We just sort of made them a threat, made their malignancy threatening to us, even though it wasn't necessarily the case, in order to keep our eye off the ball, right? And in order to grow the political class and strengthen power. I mean, let's face it. Ronald Reagan made the Russian bear seem like the big bad, scary monster when it had the GDP of Texas. Ayn Rand was the only person to step out and say, look, Russia is incompetent. The Soviet Union is totally incompetent. There's nothing really to be afraid of. It may turn out that they're competent at one thing, and that's, force. And it may turn out that that's the case, but it's highly unlikely. And more than likely than not, their missiles won't even get off the launch pad. That's how incompetent they are. She was the only person to say that during an era where Reagan was, Reagan, Nixon, all the Cold Warriors were ginning up fear about, the communists, the domino effect, and how that would, prove to metastasize all over the world and take us over. They forget that evil isn't an equal and opposite force to good. They forget that evil is actually parasitic. It depends on the good, the virtuous, in order to survive. There's no way that these parasitic states can survive without the virtuous folks, without the free folks, without us. Eventually they crumble. There's really nothing to fear. So I get the sense the same thing goes with China, except they're trying to marry paradoxes. They're trying to marry free market values with Xi Jinping's control of the Chinese Communist Party, and they've done some very dangerous things. Recently, a couple of students were caught bringing an extremely dangerous agricultural fungus.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if students are doing that, and if in fact, as the conservative news media says, and the Epoch Times, which is a newspaper founded by Chinese dissidents, with what they say is true, that all of these students do have connections to the CCP, then they shouldn't be allowed. And if they're smuggling organisms into the United States of America with the intention of doing us great harm, they shouldn't be allowed. They simply shouldn't be allowed in. Yeah, so you're right. It's either one thing or another. But Trump doesn't have principles, and he doesn't care if he contradicts himself, even in the very same sentence, let alone the same day or week.
Right. And the problem might be just one of generalizations, right? I don't doubt that there are bad actors working for the Chinese government that want to do us harm. But that doesn't justify, extrapolating from them and projecting it onto every Chinese person who wants to come here to get away from China.
Exactly.
But that's the way it seems that Trump thinks. It's these unjustified generalizations, and he makes sweeping statements, and he doesn't care if he contradicts himself. He has no regard for the truth. He just doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, and let's face it, to him, lose-win relationships are good for him. If he's winning and you're losing, he's perfectly fine with that. He doesn't understand that trade is a win-win scenario. And that's one of the many reasons I can't consider him a capitalist by any stretch of the imagination. So speaking of this, speaking of rights violations and Trump wanting to trample your First Amendment right to burn the flag, which, folks, I think.
Mark, are you just going to ignore Lee's suggestion? Is that what's going to happen?
I didn't even see Lee's suggestion.
Okay, so Lee says in 2028, can you two run for president and vice president?
Here's the deal. I think anybody who wants to run for the presidency should immediately be disqualified from running. When Hillary Clinton said in an interview, "I just want to be president of the United States," I was like, "You're done." I literally turned off the television. Gavin Newsom is one of the most shameless whores with respect to gaining political power right now. In his prominent media feud with Trump, which I think he's eating up because it gives him lots of television time, and he loves the engagement because he's a malignant narcissist. The fact that he wants to be president in 2028 should make you fear him, folks. If the disasters that he's already created in California weren't enough to make you fear this incompetent idiot with the greaseball hairdo, all right, then his desire to be president should. So the only way I would ever run for any office, to be honest with you, is if I had to, out of a sense of obligation, that the only way things could be right is if I somehow got in there and were able to change them and then get the fuck out.
Mark, are you saying if nominated, you will not run, elected, if you're elected, you will not serve?
I'm saying if I was nominated, I was saying I will not run. If I was nominated, I would reluctantly serve, but I would get out as soon as possible.
Okay. Does the reluctance have anything to do with the fear that these hairband pictures will come to light if you should?
No, because I will reveal it. I will reveal everything before you take out all the skeletons in your closet. And as an actor, there's got to be a number of them, right? Actors are considered a libertine bunch, folks. There was a time when actors were banned from various public spaces, and there's a reason for that. We are animals, and we're childish animals on top of it. But no, I would let all the skeletons out of my closet, perfectly out in the open, just as you do, and that way, what do they have to fight?
That's right.
There's nothing. There's nothing. There's no dirt they can come up with on you if you let it all out in the open and say, "Hey, I did this. I did this. Here it is. There it is." You know, go figure. I evolved. I remember. Just speaking of evolution, I remember one time listening to conservative radio, and they used to bitch about Hillary Clinton changing her hairstyle all the time. They made it seem like the fact that she changed her hairstyle all the time made her unclear philosophically, like she was searching for an image. She didn't have a persona. As if you keep a mustache for 25 years or the same identical haircut for 25 years, you're somehow emotionally and philosophically stable. That used to drive me insane when they would say that. She's certainly crazy. She's certainly a bad person. But that's not in evidence by the fact that she wants to be stylish with her hair. That's not.
No, it's
that's
not.
That's not a receipt.
No, that's very peculiar.
Hello, my little Mike Tyson.
Oh no,
boy. He's staring at me longingly from his bed, and he has breached the barrier almost. So I might have to rescue him in a minute. So this is a very disturbing thing you sent me from the Free Press.
All right, what did I send you from the Free Press? I don't even remember. What?
I'm gonna read it straight.
What is it?
It's only a paragraph, but I want to see if our audience is as disturbed as I know you probably are, as I am. The White House is preparing to ramp up its transfer of foreign nationals in the U.S. Illegally to Guantanamo Bay. Yes, where they are outside of the jurisdiction of the United States and apparently outside of the jurisdiction of the Constitution, with citizens of countries including, okay, now we're not talking about criminals from Venezuela, criminals from cartels in border cities. These citizens include British citizens, Italian citizens, citizens from Haiti. They are set to be transferred to the prison complex. Officials said they would likely not inform those citizens' home governments of their detention. We need James on this because that sounds illegal as far as I can tell. And Trump has previously said he plans to send almost 30,000 migrants to that base. So we have super prisons in El Salvador that are supposed to house these people who are being picked off the streets. And now we have Guantanamo Bay being retooled to take illegal immigrants, people who might have overstayed their visa to be here. Not criminals, not people who have committed a crime, but people who did not get their permission slip from the government to stay here for the period of time that they're here. Michael, what say you? I'm going to save my pup.
I absolutely hate this. Jim says the Supreme Court has already ruled that folks there have due process. They have. I still don't like it. I don't like the idea of outsourcing our justice system to other countries. I don't like the idea of especially sending people who haven't committed crimes to other countries. I just hate all of this stuff. I have a very strong libertarian streak to me. Small L. I called myself libertarian for a lot of years.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What does that mean?
What it means is that I don't trust the government. I believe strongly in individual rights. And when the government starts shipping people to other countries, I'm very, very skeptical. Even if Trump was to come along and they were claiming, look, these are only people convicted of crimes, we're going to send them to Guantanamo, I would still not like it. I definitely wouldn't like sending them to places like El Salvador, but I would not like it. If you can't incarcerate them here, then you're incarcerating too many people. There's just no, which they are anyways, of course, but there's just nothing in my mind that justifies this. And these people have just simply crossed a border. They're not murderers and rapists. Some obviously are. If you pick any, 10,000 people at random, some are going to be criminals. It's the same thing with people that cross the border. But by and large, they're just people that want a better life. And we have this maniac at the helm who wants to ship them over to Guantanamo, which is a hellhole from all accounts.
So James, of course, says rightly the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendments would be violated by sending even criminals to foreign countries. Well, as you know, James, I don't think Trump has even read the Constitution, although he might have a picture of it on his wall. In his guilt office, I don't think he understands or has even attempted to understand its contents. And it wouldn't be the first time that we see somebody, either executive or the legislature, abandoning our Bill of Rights and proper amendments that protect our freedoms for legislation or for some kind of popular thing that they want to do to violate the rights of a particular minority in the country.
Yeah. I want to give 2 shout outs before you get to the next story here. First shout out goes to Race Jacobson. He has been doing our thumbnails and he's been knocking them out of the park. He's doing an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you, Race. We really, really appreciate it. And Jim Vallliant joined the other day when you bailed on me. Jim Vallliant came in and took up your slack, and he just was absolutely great. He argued with me, which is always fun. Thank you, Jim. He's always welcome on the show.
Especially since he's right. And
no, he wasn't right. No, he was not. And, when I actually told Jim, I didn't mention this. I submitted Jim in my debate to Grok for analysis. And you know what? It actually said, who the hell was this moderator and why was he so biased? No, Grok didn't actually say that. Just in case one person takes me seriously.
Yeah,
but it could have. If it did, it would have been believable. I should have said, is the moderator biased, and if so, in which direction?
Well, folks, it's the battle of the narcissists. I'm not talking about us, Michael, because I don't think we're narcissistic. We're rationally self-interested. And there is a difference. And you can tell the difference when you compare guys like us who believe in truth and integrity to guys like Trump and Newsom, or as Trump likes to call him, New Scum. I actually sort of like that nickname, to be honest with you. I know it's a terrible thing for a president to say. It's very undignified. It lacks the statesmanship, the stature of the statesman-like quality that you think a guy like Trump should have to be giving bad nicknames to these guys. It takes you back to the 6th grade playground when you were making fun of people you didn't like and or getting beat up by them. This is the kind of world that Trump exists in, but it's also the kind of world that Gavin Newsom exists in. Well, actually, he can actually look like he's a step higher on the scale. As Behar from the View said, superficially, this is the standard for Democrats, by the way. He's just so handsome and well-spoken. I just want a handsome, well-spoken president. That's all she cares about, man.
Okay. Don't ever talk in that voice again.
I got to go on The View. I've talked in that voice a lot. You got to get used to it. It's one of my go-tos. But anyway, Gavin Newsom is in a war with Trump right now because Trump has basically called him incompetent. He's called in the National Guard because the LAPD was slow in responding to the violence that's been occurring here for the past 3 or 4 days, which seems to be sweeping across the country. It's clearly an organized attack of various nihilistic, anarchistic groups that are getting together and seizing a moment to create chaos and to overturn what they think are the levers of power. Even though they're not strong enough to take them over, they want to. This is where the Ligers of the world, the Hazal Dins and the Noahs live. This is what the Jackson Ankles, they love this kind of stuff. And it's no mistake that some of the people who are burning the American flag in the streets and breaking windows and burning cars are also waving Palestinian flags, folks. They're all of an ideological kind that are just solidifying or coagulating, I should say, behind a particular issue. My dog has breached the border. I'm going to pick him up and bring him over here. You go ahead and tell me what you think about this feud.
Well, it's another instance where you just don't know whom to believe. I was listening this morning to Brian Kilmeade, and he has all the buzzwords as he's describing this. Invaders was one such thing, criminals. As he's explaining anybody that would be protecting the rights of immigrants, he says, there's some people who actually want the immigrants here. They need them to clean their houses and do their laundry and things like that, minimizing the opposing arguments. And then, you have the other side and they say, no big deal, nothing to see here. And it's a very difficult thing to assess as an outsider. Now, they played a quote from the police chief from LA, and he says, the situation is out of control. And they're repeating that, and they're presenting it as if he said, this is a situation that we can't handle. Now, I don't know his intent, right? I can't know. But I do know that to say that this is out of control is a figure of speech. It doesn't necessarily mean he was literally saying that the LA Police Department could not handle it. But how do you know when everybody involved is politically motivated and all they want is power and they'll say anything? How do you determine what's true and what's not? I mean, we can see videos. Clearly, there's, riots going on that are despicable, but does that mean that the police department of LA or the California State Police couldn't have handled it? Does it mean that Trump had to send in the guard? And I ultimately just don't know. You mentioned anarchists, and I've heard that quite a few times, Mark, but I'm just, are you using that?
Anti-fascist. I'm using it as a sort of catch-all term.
Okay, because Nancy Pelosi says that they're anarchists, and I heard a few other people say anarchist, but I mean I'm not seeing the black flag being waved, right? So I don't get it. I don't know why
they're anti-fascist, but I think maybe it's a catch-all term for people who are, like the Big Lebowski. We believe in nothing, Lebowski. That's sort of what they are.
Yeah, but the claim is that this is a big organized event. And now said Josh Hawley that we mentioned before, I think it's him, is doing an investigation now into who's running it.
And the rationale for sending the troops in, I can see a rationale for it, given what happened in 2020 and given the governors and the mayors of various states and cities' slow reaction to the violence that was going on, even allowing the protesters to take over entire city blocks and for those areas to become literal zones of anarchy where people were getting murdered and raped and law enforcement personnel and personnel, the first responders were not allowed in to save people's lives. I can see wanting to preempt that because there seems to be a growing momentum for creating some chaos in various cities. I think stuff started to happen in San Francisco and in other cities around the country. So I gotta believe there is a kind of organization to this. There's a loose net of folks out there that many of whom are probably commies.
Yeah, and I wouldn't doubt it. I certainly wouldn't dispute it. I just don't know the extent to which it's happening. It's a very difficult assessment to make in these situations. But let me ask you a question.
Let me ask you a question real quick before you go on to that. Do you think if you go to a protest with elbow pads, knee pads, a helmet, and a keffiyeh covering your face and a backpack on your back, that you should be instantly taken off the streets and put in jail? Because you're wearing that stuff. It seems like you have the intention of violence. And is that this is maybe a James?
No, I do not. I mean, I'm thinking of it real quickly, but no, I do not think you should immediately be put into jail.
James, do you think if because I'm going to believe what James says over you, if somebody comes to a protest with gear that looks like they are appearing to engage in a violent act, is it appropriate to preemptively put those people away? I mean, I think they're already violating rights by being in the middle of the street, preventing people.
Oh, wait a second. You didn't say that. You just threw that in. You can't just throw things in after the fact.
I can standing I want this is my half of the show.
Listen, if they're standing in the street, if they're blocking traffic, I don't care what they're wearing. They should be arrested.
Okay.
Right. All right. My problem is it's always the same when you're pushing a freedom, right? Is we can always come up with the scenario where we say, I just don't like it. It's horrible. But, freedom entails risks, a lot of them. And if this guy or lady is dressed like that, but she's not initiating violence against anybody, if she's not violating anybody's rights, I don't know how you arrest her. And as Alan Thomas says, they're defensive protective arms. And I don't know how you could argue against that, because somebody might say, you know what, I'm wearing this because I know that other people might get violent and I want to protect myself. And are we going to go in and say, no, we think you're lying, we're going to be the precogs, and take you off the street? I'm just not for it. And, Jim and I had quite the argument the other day, and I'm just, because he's not here now.
Now you're going to take advantage of the fact that he's not here.
Yes, because the Constitution, when they talk about the calling up of the National Guard, it's in Article 1, Section 8, and it's clearly assigned to Congress. Now, Jim says, well, Congress delegated the power to the president with the Insurrection Act of 1807. I personally don't think that Congress has the authority to delegate their power in perpetuity, mind you, to the president of the United States. Jim came in and said, yeah, but it was done under Thomas Jefferson, who was no lover of big government. Well, I know that Jeff wasn't a big fan of big government. I also know that when it came to practicality, he sidestepped the old Constitution in order to make that Louisiana Purchase. And I know, Jim Madison, although I love him, he's on my shirt. Both of them are, constitutionalist extraordinaire, the father of the Constitution, opposed the National Bank, but when he was president, rechartered it. So,
Do you think James Madison would appreciate you calling him Jim?
oh, come on, he would love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he would like if I called him Jim Bob.
No, he wouldn't, especially if you added Jimmy Bob. And I understand where you're going with that. Alan Thomas says, when Trump says no masks, that's a violation of the Fourth. I have to agree with all that. But then again, these people are in the streets doing nefarious things and don't wish to be identified. So they are in the public spaces that are not meant to be spaces for protest. And they are also.
But that's different, Mark. So you can't switch it up. If they're in some place they're not supposed to be, that's a different thing altogether.
Anything up? I'm adding it as a condition.
When you add, that changes things. That's what switching it means.
No, that's not what. That's what context means.
It means increasing. No, it means trying to win the argument by changing what we're talking about.
No. This is now that you're accusing me of being like Jimmy Bob. But hey, I wanted to get to, anybody who's seen the debate between you guys knows what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get to the heart of something here and haven't been able to, though.
Okay, get to the heart of it. Go ahead.
The heart of the dispute between Newsom and Trump is that, of course, Trump thinks that Newsom is incompetent, which of course Newsom is. But Newsom has fired back, saying that Trump is, I want to quote this, he's not the same person I dealt with just over 4 years ago, and he's incapable even of a train of thought. Now, he's referring to, I guess, a couple of verbal slips that Trump made in conversation, like saying that they had a meeting on a certain day when they had it on another day. And he's using this to highlight Trump's mental incompetence or growing mental incompetence. All the while, during Biden's 4 years, he straight up defended Biden's competence. I mean, not just defended it as, I think he's probably fine. No, he said, I've had conversations with this guy, and this guy is straight up at the top of his game. He's where he is because he is at the top of his game cognitively. Now, can I believe Newsom?
You cannot.
In anything?
No. And that's, again, why you can't trust these people. This guy's, he's like talking about Biden, and he's sharp as a tack. He's a wonder of the modern world type thing. And now he doesn't miss a beat for calling Trump out. Now, Trump, I really don't see him as any different. He's always talked like this, and he's always seemed wacky and, can't complete a thought and that sort of thing. Is it possible that, he's losing a step? Sure. Is Gavin Newsom the one to point it out? No. Will his base eat it up? Probably. He's
such a political animal. It makes me sick. I just want to give a couple of his quotes just to show people what a big fat phony Newsom is. Quote, it's because of his age that he's been successful. This is Newsom referring to Biden. It's because of his age that he's been so successful. He also said, Newsom added that Biden's masterclass record meant that he was all in on Biden, serving another 4 years in the White House, which Newsom said would be a gift for the American people. So this is a guy who went all in for his tribe, knowing full well that doing that would probably secure the DNC's support in 2028. There's nothing this guy does that is not politically calculated to get in with his group. Right now, he's sort of swerving a little to the right to pretend like he can actually appeal to the flyover folks, to the red states, because he knows he's going to have to appeal to all of them. And so he's taking the time now to rewrite history and to pretend like he has some sort of conservative values, whatever that means in today's day and age, beyond Christian nationalism. I don't know. But he is definitely trying to move to the right to appeal to a wider constituency. But he's a fraud, man. He's a fraud. The guy's political career should be over. And the fact that Joy Behar is touting him because of his hair, his good looks, and his ability to put a sentence together. I mean, I get it. We're going to go up on 12 years now of presidents who can't put full sentences together. And that's really frustrating, because one thing we want in a president is the capacity to articulate an idea. It was one of the good things about Reagan. He could articulate an idea. He wasn't embarrassing in public. I don't think I have not been embarrassed by the leader of the free world for probably the last 30 years.
Well, you're probably right there, Mark.
Either if they had the capacity to articulate themselves like Obama did, he was so utterly incompetent in every other way, and so utterly divorced from Americanism that it was just embarrassing to see him go up there and bow to a Saudi prince, for example.
Yeah.
The guy who leads a country that like still practices slavery and tethers women to their kitchens and to their babies, and will not let them go out in the world unaccompanied by a male adult or male relative. I mean, that is not a representative of a place you should bow to at all. In fact, you probably shouldn't even go there, to be honest with you.
No, it's because these parties are unprincipled, Mark. Now, there happens to be a party that is principled. I don't know if you want to tell people about it, or maybe you're a little shy, whatever, but if you'd like to share about this other party that is principled, we can take some time to do so.
Shy is a word that usually doesn't apply to me, but I appreciate the attempt to make me seem self-effacing and afraid of the world out there. I'm not.
No, you were afraid of Annabelle, though.
Well, this is true. We'll talk about that at another time. Annabelle did freak me out. Spiders freak me out. Democrats freak me out. Republicans freak me out. You know who doesn't freak me out? Capitalists, real capitalists, like the American Capitalist Party. If you go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, make sure to donate, become a member, get our monthly newsletter written by the magnificent Ariana Sneath. She's a workhorse, and she puts together a good letter. So check it out. Keep track of us, and let's start winning elections, folks. We already got an election coming up in August. Our very own Alan/Alex is running for city council, and I think he's going to win because he's the man, and he's going to bring capitalism to that benighted region. And once capitalism starts, it can't be stopped, my friend. So, and also don't forget to hit your like button and subscribe, please, because we're slowly growing our viewership. And pretty soon it's going to go viral, and we're going to start taking over the culture. And you might as well be at the vanguard, right?
That's the cutting edge.
The cutting edge of a great movement, a movement that America is thirsty and hungry for. All right, I got to talk a little bit about Israel before we go on to the capitalist thought of the day.
Okay.
So there's been a rather interesting development that I'm sort of on the fence about, because, of course, I'm a hardliner with Palestine, with the Gaza situation. As you know, I am not politically correct with respect to what I think Israel should do to Gaza, to the Palestinian folks who are backing the Hamas terrorist group. I think the war should have been won in a month and a half, but Israel and the world doesn't have the stomach to win wars anymore. They have the stomach for persistent and endless violence, so long as it's in dribs and drabs, and so long as it takes the lives of the citizens of a successful pro-democracy state. The administration has come up with an interesting solution to the Hamas problem, and that is to create the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So it's a joint effort between Israel and the United States to take the one of the main levers of power away from Hamas, which is to steal humanitarian aid, which they do, and then they resell it out in the Gazan market in order to use the profits to fund their war machine. So this has been very successful at separating the dependency of the Gazan people on Hamas for anything. And this is causing a pretty interesting political shift as well, as more and more Palestinians are starting to understand in no uncertain terms that Hamas is the bad guys, Israel are actually the good guys, and the United States are actually the good guys trying to help them. Well, Hamas isn't liking this. And so recently they attacked a bus filled with Gaza Humanitarian Foundation workers, injuring many of them and killing about five to eight, I think, Palestinian people in their attempt to maintain their hold on power. What do you think of this, man? This is a crazy moment in time, and it should be a signal to the pro-Palestinian people exactly who the villain is out there. But I don't get the sense that they're going to get this memo.
There's a clear lesson in this, right? And that's this: whether you're pro-Israel, anti-Israel, whether you think they should be bombing the hell out of Gaza or taking a limited approach, I don't care what your view is. You have to glean from this that Hamas does not care about the Palestinian people. They do not care, because if they cared, they would just want them to get the aid, and that would be it. And they would not, it wouldn't be an issue. But they murdered people to prevent this aid from getting to the people they're claiming.
Palestinians, I might add. Palestinians, I might add.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's clear as day. Whatever else your view is, simply do not tell me that Hamas cares for the Palestinian people, that they're fighting for the Palestinian people, that they're fighting for Palestinian rights. They simply are not.
Correct.
Beyond that,
now early on in their existence, they became they were a charitable organization that were anti-corruption, and the Palestinian people only had the Fatah, the Palestinian Authority, to compare them to, and as they postured as the party of anti-corruption. Then, of course, got elected by a plurality, and then proceeded to murder all of the political opposition. The leadership has never made the assertion that they are there to protect and defend the Palestinian people. In fact, they've outright said that is the job of the UN. Now, that's disturbing in and of itself, since the only legitimate reason a government exists is to protect individual citizens from violence. That's its only raison d'etre. That's it. And the Hamas has, yes, I spoke French. Yeah, and Hamas has already said that's not what it's about. And so, look, folks, if you're still on the pro-Palestinian side, you should have reconciled yourself to this. The only people who've been fighting for a Palestinian state, in all honesty, have been the Israelis. They've offered it to them 17 times. They've refused it 17 times. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of Palestinians in Gaza and maybe even the West Bank who want a free and independent Palestinian state. Understand that your leaders never have. That the Arab Federation never has wanted you to be free and independent, and that your only hope for a free and independent state has been Israel. So you better put your arm around your brother over there, your brothers and sisters in Israel, and instead of hating on them, love on them, because they have the keys to your kingdom, man. And if you want the keys to your independent kingdom, to what could be the Riviera of the Middle East, I suggest you give up this profoundly self-destructive ideology and embrace what Israel has been attempting to give you for decades now. And with this, I'm going to give the thought of the day, folks. We see now in the news how the political class attempts to take our power and rob us of our moral agency. They do it by appealing to things that are unpopular. So they get what they think is a wave of popular opinion behind them, and through that intimidate others into allowing legislation to be passed that grows their power. This means that you, as a lover of liberty, have to be vigilant, because the political class will attempt to take your moral agency. The founding fathers understood this, which is why they shackled them with a constitution, which is why they made the assertion, justifiably so, that the government can only do what was enumerated in that text and nothing more. Everything else fell to the states or the people. I say the people, not the states, not smaller tyrannies, but to the people. So, folks, freedom requires vigilance and it requires moral agency, both of which are difficult things, right? They require your constant awareness and awakeness to the moment. That's hard work, folks, but let's get down to the hard work of being free right now. Let's put a stop to this tyranny that's now endemic to both sides of the aisle. There is actually no side of the political establishment that is on your side. There is an alternative, the American Capitalist Party at americancapitalistparty.org. We are the party of the people, for real. We don't want to control levers of power. We don't think political power should be invested in anything but protecting your individual right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's all the government should do. And that's my capitalist thought for the day. Please, folks, join us again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. noon. Bring your questions if you want. It's going to be a mostly Q&A day, but we'll also talk news. I'll see if I can dig up those pictures and put them online so you can make fun of me. It's going to take a couple of phone calls, though, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Until that time, folks, please remember to always check your premises. I got to go rescue my dog.
And bring your questions tomorrow.
Bring them all. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, okay?
Yes.
Peace.
And share.